Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of From the Fourth Line. My name's Emma, and as always, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Marcie.
Hello.
So we have actually some actual hockey games to talk about. Also, as well, tonight is the PWHL draft, which I believe starts at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes.
So I'm
That's like
correct.
What, 50 minutes from now?
Yeah. So
Fun.
it'll have started before we're finished recording this episode, unfortunately, but I cannot control our schedule. Actually, no, I could because I picked my classes for this semester, but
I can't believe you didn't pick your classes based on.
I didn't have a lot of options. I didn't have many options.
No excuses, Emma.
Unfortunate. But yeah, so also tonight as well is game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, but we can talk about game 1 that happened. Florida won 3-0 over the Edmonton Oilers. I have a couple of non-game related notes, though. I have Sportsnet intro goes hard, because that was true. Mixstro mentioned during pregame. Unnecessary. And what else did I have? Oh, yeah. First line started, game on both sides. And then the game actually started. Oh, also that they brought the Stanley Cup out onto the ice before game 1. That was interesting because that hasn't been done apparently since the 60s. I've never personally seen it happen. So it predates me, and apparently, according to some people, it's something that hasn't been done since the 60s. So I thought it was cool. I thought maybe we're starting a new tradition here. I didn't see anybody say anything negative about it. I will say though, the lead up to that game was 8:00. I don't think puck dropped until 8:30.
No, I remember because I was sat and I was like, because I was packing my room up at this point. So I was sat and I was like, oh, the game starts in a minute. I checked my phone. And then it's half an hour later, I get the notification, oh, game start. And I'm sat and I'm thinking, did I get the time wrong?
No,
did I get
it's just
there was no.
There was 30 minutes of lead up. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, so some of my notes here are physical, right off the jump. It was a physical from both sides, but there was no penalties until halfway through the first, where Matthias Ekholm tripped someone to get the call. But yeah. But before that even happens, Carter Verhaeghe scores on the first shot of the game off of on the rush.
Yeah.
I had to Google how to spell his name for this.
Yeah. I'm trying to spell it in my mind and then realize that I'm really bad at spelling things in my mind.
You know, I always think there's a U in there that there isn't. There's no U in his name. It's VERHAEGE. I don't know. I just always think there's a U in there somewhere. Either where that second E is or after the G. I don't know why.
Okay, no, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but
I see your point.
Anyway, I'm this sucks. I'm mad at this. I was like, no, this is nice. I'm enjoying myself. I'm not stressed because it's not my team playing. I just get to kick back, relax, and then I get frustrated over the spelling of his name 8 minutes in. I'm like, this sucks. Never mind. But yeah, Edmonton had a lot of high danger chances. I think most of my notes can sum up to the fact that it was a physical game. The Nurse and Cece pairing was brutally awful, and Cody Cece will not be playing in tonight's game. He's been replaced by Descharnais. And then also as well that like Edmonton was out shooting and out chancing Florida the entire game. And like obviously Florida had moments of dominance because how else would they be able to score 2 goals? The third one was an empty netter, so like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But like Bobrovsky, number one cop on the force. Bobrovsky had a ridiculous game. 33 shots to get the shutout by Bobrovsky. Number one cop. I've been waiting since Saturday to make that reference because
I know
there is a reason why for the long there is a reason why I would like go like Bobrovsky, right? And I would think, what TV show am I quoting? No, it's not a TV show. It's a Sportsnet bit. From like when I was like that's been going on since like 2009.
It's the way that I knew that you would say this.
Bobrovsky.
I was sat and I was like, I'm gonna
classic. It's a classic. It's a classic bit. There's like a 2-minute compilation of every single time he's used that bit in like the early days of Sports Center. Like,
oh
dear. Bobrovsky.
Oh.
It's just because it's so stupid. It's because it does sound exactly like some like rookie beat cop from like some like cheesy 90s cop show.
Massively.
Right? Like, and that's what makes anyways.
Oh dear.
And like the thing is like I think because we talked about it a little bit last episode is like it's like one of those things where it's like Bobrovsky has always been good. Right? Like he's all like you look at his stats and like you look at like when I look at like just look at his save percentage through the years. He's always been good. He's up for his 3rd Vezina. He's nominated to win a 3rd Vezina, which is kind of crazy. Like he's always been good, right? And like the thing is I think not his issue, but his problem is like he was stuck in Columbus for a pretty long time of his career. Like he spent 2 years in Philadelphia, right? Where it's like people are like, oh yeah, he's good because it was when Philadelphia was good-ish. And then, right, because it was like when it was like in the Metro, it was like a huge battle between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, right? That fun era. For multiple reasons. And then he went to Columbus and like Columbus in my head, like, okay, yes, I know they haven't like there's been years where they've had brilliance and they've been like pretty good and they're now going through a regression obviously and have been for quite some time. But like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like they never you never really talked about Bobrovsky and I think that's why people are now being like, "Oh, why is he so good?" Because he's being like he's given the chance to be good in the playoffs, which is exactly what's happening in the past couple of seasons with Florida. And that's why people are like surprised all of a sudden that he's like playing well, where it's like he's kind of always played like this. Like, yes, this game specifically, he was absolutely lights out and made some highlight reel saves. And I think, if it was, he kind of like, I think you could be like, oh, well, I think this game came down to goaltending. And like Edmonton made too many mistakes. And unfortunately, like, and this is not a dig against Stuart Skinner. I think he played like a fantastic game otherwise. He just wasn't able to be there in those 2 situations. Now, there was other mistakes that got made. It's not just it was those 2. It was like when Florida made mistakes that allowed Edmonton to get chances, Bobrovsky didn't make mistakes in his saves. Whereas, unfortunately for Edmonton, even though they probably felt like you can't be disappointed with that game in terms of the fact of like, it's not like they played poorly. Sometimes the puck just doesn't bounce their way.
Yeah. The mistakes were just at a bad time.
Yeah. Especially like on defensive and, we talked about Nurse and Cece, I don't know. Like, we're not seeing that pairing tonight, so we'll see how it's different. And like, I'll say, like, the Panthers, like, were able to, like, work into their bread and butter and just, like, they won, yes, and yes, they were outchanced and they were outshot, but, like, they still played their game, right? They were creating scrums after the whistle. They were being aggressive and being physical without drawing too many penalties.
Yeah.
Like, they drew a couple penalties. Like, there was the Bennett cross check on Draisaitl that got him the penalty. There was the Verhaeghe high stick going into the second. But and like also as well, like Oilers had some brilliant chances. That Janmark chance with Connor Brown in the second period. There was a chance by Zach Hyman. There's a couple chances from that. I think it's like their third or fourth line had some chance. Like, it's also, it's game one. Like, I know it starts to get down to the point where it's like, okay, well, you're 3 wins away, but like, I don't think, like, if Florida starts getting into that mentality, that could be their downfall of like, oh my God, we're only 3 wins away, instead of looking at it as we have to win 3 more. So it's right.
That's the big thing, because like I do see a lot of people being like, oh, like they're only 3 wins away, and it's like, but they're also 3 losses away.
4 losses to away,
4
yes.
losses even.
Yeah, right. Like, it's, but like they're 3, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're 3 wins away. They're also 3 losses away from having their backs against the wall.
Yeah.
Right? They, like, Florida could lose the next 2 games. And it's like, oh, well, they only lost 2. Well, yeah, it's a totally different series. It's a totally different even series if they lose tonight.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the way the dynamic flows, because it's like, you then have Edmonton coming off of a win to going home with what they've got. Like, game is tonight's Monday. The next game is until what, Thursday? Because it goes Thursday, Saturday, right? If I'm doing this off the top of my head, I don't have the dates in front of me, but it's either Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's Thursday, because people were complaining that there's so much time in between games. And it's because it's like, literally, you have to cross 2 time zones and go halfway across the country and also north at the same time. Like, it's a long flight.
Yeah. It's
even just going like Toronto to Calgary is like a long flight. And like, you have to go further because you're coming from Florida, which is kind of in line. And then you also have to go like more north, because Edmonton is more north, I think. Yeah. Is it? I should know where these cities are. I'm like in my head, and like I have like.
I was gonna say, please don't look at me, because I will not.
I purposely was like not gonna go to that. But yeah, I don't know if you have any other notes. I'm just like looking. I do have this series could come down to goaltending.
I think it could, and I think it's like as stressful as that is, and as much as I don't want to be like putting
more weight on Stuart Skinner.
Yeah, I would love to see it be that close that it does literally come down to goaltending, because I think I love the drama. I love the drama of it.
I think like the drama of it, yeah, and I think it also validates kind of like the fact that the Edmonton Oilers are a good team, right? And I think it also validates the fact of like, no, you can have playoff performance with a team that is built around 1 or 2 players, which was like what people were saying was the downfall of the Edmonton Oilers for years, like all through this McDavid Draisaitl era of this team, like this iteration of the team. Like, people were saying like, you can't win that way, when like there's proof that you can get very far. And like, I think also as well, like, there are solutions within this team to solve the goaltending issue, like to solve various issues. I think Edmonton's defense is not the strongest by far in the NHL, and I think a lot of people will agree with me when I say that. Like it's not even close to like the strongest blue line. It's not.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is the Darnell Nurse contract, which I've criticized openly many times.
Yeah, the Darnell Nurse contract is not a friend of yours.
I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
Because then I think mostly because it's like I think it's stupid because people will be like, no, it's perfectly valid, but then we'll go on to complain about the Morgan Riley contract. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I'm like, you can't be fine with one and then shit on the other. It's like you're either
Especially when like one of them is is a better contract.
Yeah.
The Morgan, like at the end of the day, the Morgan Riley contract is the better contract.
By a mile.
Apologies to the Darnell Nurse like homers out there.
Yep. Sorry.
Controversial take. I don't know if it's that controversial of a take. I don't think it is. But I think then also as well, like because of I think there's so much similarity into like how the Edmonton Oilers have been built in the past historically, and how the Toronto and I almost said Toronto Blue Jays. I was like, wrong sport. Toronto Maple Leafs. the Toronto Maple Leafs have been built in the past, like have been built in the Matthews era, right?
Yeah.
Like not to the same degree of like core four. There's been less of that, but that's still like kind of forming with the Edmonton Oilers, right? Like because you have essentially you have a core four. You have McDavid, Draisaitl, Zach Hyman now, right? Like I think especially in this season for him, he's kind of been like that central core piece. And then Nurse, right, has been kind of like, or Evan Bouchard as well, I think could like you could throw in there and be like, hey, what about him? I think, but he's younger. I think because he's only 24? I always think that he's older than he actually is because he is 24. But I always think he's like 28, right? And I'm like, no. He was drafted in 2018. He's 24. I always think he is so much older than he is because he was drafted 10th overall in 2018. Yeah, he's only 24. I know. Like that's the thing. Because I always think he's like 26, 27. Right?
Yeah. Oh, that team is.
But no, because he was on. Because also like because he was on, like that's the thing is his first season in the OHL, he was on that championship-winning Knights team with Tkachuk, Marner, and Christian Dvorak.
Yeah. So
yeah.
He's just like
he also like
which is why
he also like played. Oh gee. He played. This is so I'm looking at his career and it like his career pathway. Jeez, yeah, no wonder it seems like he came out of absolutely nowhere. And so, first season in the OHL is 15-16. Plays there for 3 straight seasons. Then 18-19 plays. I think he splits his time between the Edmonton Oilers, where he plays 7 games. He plays 8 games in the playoffs with the Bakersfield Condors in the AHL. And then he played, I'm sure this is probably after the 18-19 Knights run ends. So it's like he started the season with Edmonton, played 7 games, did a good old Fraser Minton. Then went to London. And then when the London Knights playoff run ended, he then joined the Condors in the AHL in the playoffs. And then played the full 19-20 season, which was that got shortened because of COVID, with the Condors. And then played 2021 he played part of 2021 in Sweden, in the top Swedish league. Which I'm looking at this, I have no idea.
No.
I had no idea. I'm realizing now I have not done a really in-depth look into Evan Bouchard's career. I was like, oh, I need a good defenseman who can put up some points for me in fantasy. Evan Bouchard. Picking
like,
you.
Yeah. You.
And then played and then came back. Now, I don't know which is first. I'm assuming the Swedish league was first. This is when I have to look at like his game log specifically, because he played in the same season in 2021. Like he played 23 games with this, in the Swedish league with this. I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry. But it's in the top Swedish league, and then he played 14 games that season with the Oilers. He didn't play in the playoff bubble though.
Okay.
Right? Because that was the bubble year. Which also is, I would have to, he'd be such a fast, probably should actually also have his Wikipedia page open. Instead of just relying on this hockey TV. And then in 21-22, then that's his first full season with the Edmonton Oilers, where he plays 81 games and then 16 games in the playoffs, and then is solid as well through the rest for the next. So it's like he is still like, in terms of NHL games, like he hasn't even broken 300 yet. He's at 265 for regular season NHL games. At like 24 for a defenseman too, like you have to think like defenseman slower development than forwards in most cases, just because that's the nature of the position. But yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, fun little deep dive.
I know, it's interesting. I'm realizing now I did not know too much about his career. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because due to the fact that, okay, so the reason why he went to Sweden was because of the COVID's effect on the AHL.
Yeah.
And then he joined the Oilers for the shortened regular season. But he didn't get a lot of ice time.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. But yeah, so that 2018 draft, because he was selected 3 spots behind Quinn Hughes. Interesting. There was a lot of defensemen in that draft, though. Like, at least in the first couple rounds. I'm looking back at it.
Yeah.
But
fun.
I'm like, yeah. I know goalies take a while to develop, but like there's some like duds with these goaltenders. Like you have to go all the way down to, we're not going to do it. Maybe this is something we could do more so during the off season to do deep dive into draft years and stuff. Because I'm like I'm like scrolling through this and I'm like the goalie like who's played the most games in the NHL, like the top drafted to like is Lucas Dostal, and he was 85th overall.
Wow.
But also as well, also like 2018 was what, 6 years ago by now, right?
Oh my god, 2018 was 6 years ago.
So I'm
Time
like,
isn't real.
But like Samuel Ersson is this draft. Who else is this draft? Akira Schmid. Like there is future goalies in here. It's just, nature of the position.
Yeah.
Like Joel Hofer is this draft as well. Magnus Krona's in this draft as well.
Oh, yay. Good for him.
But yeah.
Deep dive into the draft. Good thing to do.
Yeah, there's some, like, I think it's hard still to kind of assess the 2018 draft, because like some of the positions that just take a little bit longer to develop, like goaltender and defenseman, like they haven't, like some guys just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. Mm.
Like, I don't know, like there's some, I don't know.
Mm.
It's interesting to look at.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. I guess we can talk about some off-ice stuff. There was some news yesterday that kind of, I saw that I got the notification from Sportsnet first before Elliot Friedman put out the tweet about it. And I had a big, like, what, like, WTF moment. And I was like, wait, am I reading this right? And I read the article like 3 different times to make sure I was reading it right. So it's, I don't know if, because it's not officially announced. And I'm going to say rumored, even though like this is from Elliot Friedman, who's usually pretty reliable with this sort of stuff. But via Sportsnet and Elliot Friedman, the Washington Capitals are slated to finalize their purchase of Cap Friendly in July. Cap Friendly being obviously the website that I think we look at like every single episode.
So much. Like
I think it's like one of the
on my laptop.
Oh yeah, no. Our like I can't we'll always have a couple tabs open on my laptop. One of them being our spreadsheet for the show that like tracks all the episodes and everything. That's always open, and Cat Friendly, always open.
Always
open. I will sometimes close Twitter to make my computer run faster. So that one's not always open, but it's open quite a bit. Because like if I have it, just makes my laptop run slower. Because but yeah, so this will allow it to be used through the draft and the first few days of free agency, but the rumored shutdown website goes dark date is July 5th. And the website will go dark, like it'll like it's not even like they're gonna own it and like be able to profit off of it. They will take that website, like it'll be gone. Like no more Cat Friendly, no more armchair GMs, no more like fun little rosters where I'm like, hey, let's put all the Connors on one roster to see how good it'll be. The answer, pretty good. There's a lot of good Connors in the league.
Yeah.
So like, what does this mean? Because Cat Friendly has a lot of like additional tools that either they have like that NHL teams pay for or that NHL teams have developed based off of based off of Cap Friendly, like different add-ins and plugins and stuff based off of the website. So it's something that's used like not just by fans to put together like stupid dumb Mitch Marner trades. It's also like a tool that is used by NHL teams. So yes, this will give the Washington Capitals a competitive advantage this season because they're taking a tool and a resource that basically the entire league uses to analyze cap space and will be essentially being like, no, it's mine now, right? Now, in doing so, what sucks is they're taking away a really great free resource that fans have been using for numerous years since Cap Geek ended in 2015. So it's been almost 10 years of having Cap Friendly around. And I've been using not like as a resource, it's a database. At the end of the day, it's a database. And, this is where I just get like a little bit like the digital archival nerd in me gets a little bit pissed off because of the way that like it's a database, and in order for a database to operate well, it needs to have longevity, and by taking it off the internet, you're getting rid of that longevity. And I think there's going to be a lot of links and a lot of different parts that are going to break, and we just don't know the full impact of that until it goes dark and you're like, hey, wait a minute, this link that I used to always be able to use like no longer works, and then you lose access to things. And it's like, it's cool that like, there's ways to get around that with like the Wayback Machine, but like that's not enough because it's just like you can't possibly archive everything that gets posted to the internet.
No.
And that's just, digital archival is a very, because it's, anyways, I'm not going to get into it. There's alternatives, obviously, like Puckpedia. It does a very similar thing in terms of providing a database of NHL salaries. It's just there are certain things that Puckpedia does not have that Cat Friendly provides, and also it's just personal taste when it comes to the UI. I much rather prefer the UI for Cat Friendly. That's why I continued to use it over Puckpedia, because it was easier for me to read and look at, and I understood it better, which is just personal preference at the end of the day, and it's not that big of a deal. It's just a little thing to be like, okay, I'm pissed off.
Yeah, it's just Cat Friendly's smoother to use.
Puckpedia lags on my computer.
Yeah.
Cat Friendly does not as much, and also as well when it comes to Cat Friendly, like Puckpedia, yes, has a great tool with the agent. Like I don't really look at Puckpedia that often because I use Cat Friendly over it. But like I was like, oh, maybe I should just sort of, when this news came out on Saturday, I guess it was, right? Was it Saturday? Or was it? No, it was yesterday. When this news came out yesterday, I refamiliarized myself with Puckpedia, and I was like, I spent about 20 minutes just on like the agent part of that website, where you can look at all the different agents and like which player, like who, like what players with which agent, and like then you can see all of the players that an agent has, and like how much, like what is the total like salary worth of players that this, like what is the total salary of all of the players this agent has. It's really cool to look at. It's so fascinating to look at, and it's like you can like see the ranking of agents based on like AAV, salary, like total salary, like total contract worth, number of UFAs, number of like pending UFAs, like all these things, and I was like, oh my god.
That is, I do like.
And that's a cool tool.
Yeah,
I find that really interesting because it's like it's like not the most easy like to find like information. It's not like you can just like look at a player's Wikipedia page and their agent will be there. I think maybe the only one like that's for is like Sidney Crosby. I think probably has Pat Brisson like somewhere on his Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
But
no.
Yeah,
it's annoying and unfortunate.
It sucks because it's like I know I saw a lot of people who are like, so well, what can the NHL do anything? I was like, no. Unfortunately, it's not illegal to purchase a website.
No.
But what it is, it's a little bit frustrating that like this is the second time a database like this will be going dark for various reasons. Like I'm not upset about when Cat Geek went dark, because the reason why that went dark is actually kind of sad. But like, so it's not the first, and like, Puckpedia will come up. There's always going to be someone who's going to provide, but it's like, it is frustrating because it's like, this is something the NHL could provide, is a free database of information they have access to because it's players for their league, right? Like, they know this information, right? Because this information gets submitted to this. They probably have years and years of historical archives worth of player salaries, right? And they could very easily put together a database that they themselves then have control over and they themselves own and can put the work in and things like that, and then can provide additional tools to teams that teams will pay for. And it's frustrating, like it's frustrating that they've never seen this as a place for them, because it's like, it's obvious fans enjoy having these resources and having these resources, because the outrage that you saw online yesterday from this news was widespread. Like even you saw like Washington Capitals fans being like, dude, like this is my favorite team, like good for them, but also this sucks. Like I don't like this because it affects me.
This was genuinely one of the only times where I've seen everyone on hockey Twitter come
Hockey Twitter
together
was
and have,
united.
like share the same opinion.
It's the first time hockey Twitter has agreed on anything. And it's because it's like, it's something that everyone is like, yeah, no, this does suck.
Literally, because it's like me and my like obsession with collecting my favorite movies on DVD, because it like physically owning it means I can't lose it.
Yeah. Oh, like if I had the space in my tiny little apartment to print off every single player, like essentially, you know, like how it's presented on Cat Friendly, where they have a page of like all of their contracts, like in that chart, right?
Yeah.
And everything. If I had the space in my apartment to own the physical, like, list of like, it's like a piece of paper and like the player's name is at the top, and then it's it's the breakdown of every contract they've ever signed in their career. If I had the space to do that and own like 100 like filing cabinets with like little folders and have it organized by team, absolutely I would.
Yeah.
I would like I would do that, because it's for the longevity of information and data, it is so important to either create a database that is safe in terms of digital archival, which there is a way to do that. It's a whole study. Google digital humanities. It's the whole study of it. But the only way to guarantee that is physical archives. And even then there's flaws with physical archives, but that is the way to guarantee the longevity of information. Yeah. But if I had space in my apartment for like 100 filing cabinets full of the breakdown of every contract every single NHL player has ever signed in their entire career, I'd have it.
Yeah.
Just in like and
yeah,
that'd be great. Oh, that'd be so good. Now I'm just picturing it, and I'm like, that actually sounds like my dream room to just like hang out in, like cat friendly, but it's like a physical space and not just a website.
That'd be just everything.
That'd be so cool. And I'm sure the NHL probably has a room exactly like that in one of their offices. And it's not just current NHL, it like is historical records.
To spend like a week in that room.
We're studying two very different things in university, but at the end of the day, like some of our like favorite areas of study can come down to like archives cool.
Yeah. It's two very different topics, but at the core they're both centered around like archives.
Well,
and like not
my minor is more archives than my major, but like
they both have.
If I were to say my two like major interests of study is sports communications and archives, and both in digital and physical.
And mine is pretty much all of mine is just archive everything. Everything you've ever found, everything you ever do.
But yeah, so with that, I think we'll move on to talk about Four Nations. It was announced in Gary Bettman's little nation address to the nation. Makes him sound like the leader of a country. But so it was announced. It was like not announced. It was confirmed that games will be split between Montreal and Boston. The tournament will run from February 12th to the 20th in 2025 to replace essentially the All-Star game. It's longer because I think then it's like a full bye week. So you know how like in the past we've had like three or four teams like play on either end of the All-Star break.
Yeah.
So it's like teams will get like a full bye week, but like they'll get a full week off, but like whether your week off is like before the All-Star game or after the All-Star game, like just depends, because if they schedule, like if they give a full week off to all the players, like they're losing out on a week, like, you know what I mean? Like they're losing out on a week of games to broadcast. But because they're replacing it with a tournament, it's like not the same. But It'll be broadcasted in Canada on Sportsnet, and then in the US on TNT, ESPN, and ABC. And then for international viewers, however you watch any of those channels, whatever, however. So they're not on like NHL Network, which I think I saw a lot of people complaining about, and I'm like, well, because I don't know who's running this tournament. Like, it's the NHL, right?
Mm.
Because the way that they decided to have these top 4 countries, it was like a mix of IIHF standings, but excluding Russia because of political reasons.
Mm.
But then also like, hey, Germany is pretty good, but they don't have enough there's not enough Germans in the NHL to field a full roster.
Yeah.
So it's like you're only going to see NHL players, which isn't exact, like, it's not true to keeping like the best on best thing, because like Czechia won gold at Worlds and they're not in this tournament. And even though you probably, I guess you could maybe could you do a full roster of Czechs playing in the NHL? I don't know how many Czech players are in the NHL, but anyways, doesn't matter. So also as well, first 6 players for each country rosters will be announced on June 28th. So that's day 2 of the draft. I don't know what time. I don't know with what. Probably with the draft. Probably I don't know if probably it'll be built into the draft. I don't know. Mm-hmm. We didn't get very much information.
Yeah.
As always. But yeah, that's that on the 4 nations. Best on best hockey. Everyone knows how I feel about it.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited for it. But you know what? I'm also very upset because Joseph Woll All-Star goalie is something that we're going to have to wait for.
We will have to wait for it, and I don't know how long we will have to wait because I don't think this was replacing the NHL All-Star Game this week, this next coming season. Mm-hmm. Then we have the Olympics to replace it in 2026. So excited. You're gonna have to put up with me. You're gonna get like a taste of what I'm like during the Olympics this summer.
Oh, no.
And then you're gonna have to put up with me during the Olympics, like during the Winter Olympics, which is arguably I'm worse during the Winter Olympics than I am during the Summer Olympics. Worse. So I'm gonna be so much worse. But yeah, and then I think because then they're bringing back World Cup of Hockey in 2028 and 2032. So I think our next NHL All-Star Game will be 2027 if they do not like just do another 4 nations tournament. Who knows?
Please give us the 2027 All-Star Game. I need to see just all my little guys there. I don't know. I don't care what I have to do to make it happen. But I will do it.
But yeah, so hopefully, like, I don't know. I would love to go to a game. I think it's like kind of overlaps with my reading week from school. So maybe we'll be there. And it'll be just me going, hey guys.
And I'll be like there in spirit.
There in spirit. I don't know.
Deep, dark depths of writing my dissertation.
Oh yeah, you will be in the middle of that. Oof.
Oh, it's gonna be rough.
So yeah, maybe we'll figure something out. I don't know. I have some ideas, but we're gonna have to reach out to some people first. Before we even bring them up on here.
Yeah, see what we can wiggle around.
Yeah, there's some business meetings. We
are serious businesswomen.
We've never had business meetings for this podcast ever.
Nope.
I think there's one that I really want to spend a long time discussing, so I think we're gonna leave that topic till the end to really give us the most time. So I guess we can talk about. Oh, okay. You know what? We'll talk about this quick one as well. NHL salary cap increase. I know we talked about this at the during the Board of Governors meetings this season. It was announced officially though that the salary cap will be increased to $88 million for 24-25, which is. And the floor is going to be $65 million, which, like, as Leaf fans, we don't have to worry about.
Nope.
I think we've already hit the floor.
Yeah, probably.
We're not one of those teams that have to worry. That's not.
That's not an issue for us.
But yeah, so it is more by it is more than the like 87 point-ish million that was discussed at the Board of Governors meetings. You know what? It's nice. It makes it a nice round number. So I'm like, whatever. At the end of the day, what is this? As I said, this is probably like famous last like fighting words. Like, what is that extra like $300,000 really going to do at the end of the day? But like, I'm probably gonna be like, thank God for that extra at some point.
Yeah.
Next season. But yeah, so it's cool. I think that this is the biggest increase to the salary cap in quite some time. I mean, we've been working with a flat cap for quite some while, because of pandemic and things. So yeah, salary cap increase good. Because when you compare the salary of NHL players to literally every other major pro sport, it looks like child's play. Like it looks like stupid.
Yeah.
It's like because it's
change.
No, it literally is. You can, because we've talked about my boyfriend, how he's a big basketball guy, but he's like, I think it was like a while ago.
I'm like basketball.
This makes it sound like you don't like him, which is not true.
No, me and Simon are best friends.
That's good. But it was like, I don't know, it was like something he talks. I still don't understand NBA super contracts, and he's gonna listen to this, and he's gonna then text me a long explanation on how NBA super contracts work. And I just don't understand. But it's like this contract amount where it's like you can have these crazy high contracts where it's like the annual like average salary for these contracts is like $90 million or something a year.
Insane.
And I'm like, you can fit the entire salary. You can fit a salary of an entire NHL roster in that. It's so stupid. It's so stupid because it's like, we see the revenue numbers that the NHL brings in, right? Like that's not like a crazy big secret, and it's like, okay, salary, like please. But yeah, so the Combine was this weekend.
It was.
The NHL Combine was this weekend. There are some fun questions that I have listed out. Some notes about it. So first, we'll get to the questions in a little bit. But like Macklin Celebrini, who is projected to go first overall at the draft, clocked in at 5'11" and 3/4 inches, which is so funny. And I hope someone has told him that, like, you know what? Go for the Mitch Marner 6 foot.
Just do it. If Mitch Marner can get away with it, so can he. Literally, just like go up on your tippy toes a little bit when they just like when they measure you at your first training camp, like just like, yeah, I grew. Yeah, I grew that 3/4 of an inch, that 1/4 of an inch, which like isn't even that much. I have a ruler out. It's not even that much. I'm like, oh, hey, look, I'm Canadian. We work in metric too, except when it comes to height. It's I don't understand. Yeah. What can I say? We like to have fun with it. He also hinted at not totally closing the door on returning to Boston College. I almost said like British Columbia. I was like, no, Boston College next season, which would be kind of huge considering, it was kind of like assumed that the reason that oh my God, what's his? I have his name. I want to say Will Smith, but it's not Will Smith. You know what I'm talking about? I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember. I know, but I can't remember who. Like, I remember because we've spoken about this before.
literally, it was like
And I
not
can't
that
for the
long
life of me
ago.
remember who. It's like right there. I just can't remember.
Like, I know I have it in my notes somewhere, and I'm trying to find it. Because I remember writing it down.
Who was it?
This is really embarrassing.
This is not our finest moment.
No.
Like, see, it was very recently.
It was Will Smith.
Was it?
Oh, I'm looking at Cat Friendly right now.
Oh.
It was Will Smith.
It's been a long week and it's only Monday.
It was Will Smith. Signed his entry-level contract, meaning he's not returning to VU. And it kind of like was like not implied, but it like seemed that like he signed it because he like wants to play with Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the worst thing in his world. Like, it's not going to be totally detrimental to his development if he stayed another year at BU.
No.
So it'll be interesting because there was a lot of moving parts. Because then it was like, well, if he signs, then Ryan Leonard will sign with the Cap. Anyways, just something to keep in mind. I mean, there's also some fun questions we can ask as well.
Yeah.
They're not we can ask, but we're asked, which we're not there. We were not.
Well, I thought we were there personally.
Yeah. One of them, okay, this is the I'll go from like weird, like least understandable to like okay. The Nashville Predators asked if you were drafted into the Army, would you want to be a sniper, a pilot, or a medic? I don't know what that tells you about like a 17-year-old.
Yeah. And also
like I know my
was,
answer would be like pilot because I like planes. And that'll be so stupid.
Yeah. No, the thing is, it's like I would be so bad in these interviews because I'm someone. It's like if you asked me if you were drafted in the Army, like which one would you pick? And I'd be like, okay, but like, is this the current Army? Like, at what point in time? Like, what was the situation?
Give me
like,
more details.
Yeah, I need a very specific scenario to be able to answer that question. And then they'd just be sat there and they'd just be like, one word answer, it'd be fine. You could just pick one.
Utah asked prospects for their Uber rating and their snap score. Uber rating, I understand. Snap score, I'm like, what NHL like front office / employee / like scout knows what a snap score is and what it means?
Yeah.
Which poor intern or like child of an NHL scout had to explain to their like parent what poor intern was like in that scouting office in Utah had to be like, so a snap score is like the score you get, and it's associated with like how many Snapchats you like send and things like in videos and like I don't know. I haven't looked at my snap score since middle school, and I think if you're over the age of 14 and still care about your snap score, you need to think about caring about something else.
Yeah.
Like, I will say Uber rating makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because, considering NHL players' history with taxi and Uber drivers. But but also as well, it like is a good indicator of like what a player is like to service employee, like when there's no expectation of like placed on, like, there's an expectation, like, to be like, hey, be a decent person when you order an Uber, but like, you know, it says something. It does.
Yeah.
I will say though, reading that made me go and check my Uber rating because I was like, I have never checked my Uber rating. I am a proud 4.97. Thank you very much.
See, I'm genuinely confused as to what happened with mine, which makes mine sound really bad. It's 4.76.
Oops, I guess you're not getting drafted in the first round anymore.
Damn it, I'm not doing first overall. This is devastating.
Drop 10 spots in the draft.
No, because it's like, I want to know, like, what I did wrong. Because, I mean, in all fairness, I don't use Ubers a lot. So it's like, would
be like
what I get affects it more than like if I used it regularly. But it's like, all I do is I just yap. I sit and I just chat away, and I'm like, maybe someone was having a bad day and they just wanted to tell me to like shut the fuck up.
like that's because for me, like, I don't I was gonna say something. Most of the Ubers I take is like when I'm taking the train like back from Toronto, like I'm taking the train from Toronto to Ottawa, and I get to Ottawa at like 11:30 at night because I usually am taking like the last train of the day.
Yeah.
Or it's like 11:30, or it's like sometimes it's close to midnight, like whatever, like it's late, and I don't want to take like public transit back to my apartment that late at night.
Yeah.
And so I will just Uber back to my apartment because also it's like 11:45, 12 o'clock at night, and I like want to get home and get to bed.
And you're like, I don't want to have to sit and deal with delays.
I'm just gonna get an Uber, and right. So that's where that's the most of my Ubers. Or like if it's a night out and we're taking an Uber, I will offer my Uber on the way there. And this is where I get really selfish. So I don't have to chance being the one to order the Uber on the way back and chance my Uber rating getting absolutely destroyed by something happening.
Yeah. You see, I feel like what went wrong with mine is the fact that we never get an Uber to places when we're going out. It's always on the way back, because it's like, chances are, if like where I am, it's like if you're going out, you're on this one bus route that's like, it's a £2 bus ticket no matter where you're going. We bus there, and then because the buses are very irregular at night, and who knows when the next one's going to turn up, we'll just be like, yeah, we're just going to get an Uber back. We'll be fine. I feel like that might have screwed me over a bit.
Well, because usually like most of the time, like if I'm going out, like I'll walk there or I'll take like the bus or whatever. But like sometimes it's the middle of winter. It's like middle of February. There's snow all over the ground. I'm not wearing my snow boots to I'll wear my Bloodstones. Actually, I have been guilty of wearing my Bloodstones to house parties before, but or like a night out. I've done it.
What, no snow boots to the club?
No. They're Bloodstones. So they're like little, like they look. So they're comfortable. Mine are really comfortable. I've broken them in. They fit like a glove. But it's like I don't want to like hike through the snow, or like don't want to take the bus. So we'll just like it's the middle of winter. We'll do the Uber to like wherever, and but because it's like most of the bars that I go out to are like within walking distance. Like I walk to them from my apartment because they're all pretty central. But I don't know. I don't know. I just thought I think the Uber one is good. I saw people who were like, why the Uber? Okay, I understood the criticism on the Snap score, because even I was like, that tells you nothing.
Yeah.
But like the Uber one, people were like criticizing it. I was like, no. I like that one.
Yeah, it's like we've seen things that have gone down between NHL players and Ubers.
I also know some people who have some god awful Uber ratings, to the point where they're like, hey guys, like my Uber rating is so bad, like if I was the one who ordered the Uber, we'd be waiting here for 20 minutes for one to like pick us up. Whereas like, so it's like someone else ordered the Uber who has a better Uber rating than I do. So I know those people. I heard horror stories through high school of people taking Ubers to and from parties in Toronto and having to pay insane amounts of cleaning fees. So, and it like totally sewered their Uber rating to the point where like sometimes they straight up made a new account, and I was like, okay.
Like, down. Okay.
Yeah. Here we go. Another one was an unnamed team asked where prospects would draft themselves.
Interesting.
Interesting. And then Montreal asked which animal you would be and why. Did you see did you see Jerome McGinley's kid's answer? He said Pegasus. And I love that. I love that. I was like, what 18-year-old teenage boy is gonna be like, yeah, I'm a Pegasus. And I'm like, that's honestly badass.
It's like, good for you.
And then he explained it because it was like he said it to like he like was like talking about it because he like was asked like, oh, what's like a question you've been asked? And he's like, oh, Montreal asked me like if I was an animal, which animal would I be? And like, I didn't, and he was like, well, I didn't want to say like lion or dog because like everyone says that. I'm like, true. And he was like, so I said Pegasus. And then he went on to explain like how it's like, because it's like I'm a horse and I can put in like the hard work and stuff for like a horse. And then when it's time for me to like soar and like really like reach new heights, I can fly away like a Pegasus. And I was like, you know what?
I love that.
It's such a great answer. You know what? Hats off to anyways, I thought that was good. I was like, you know what? Damn. Like, that's such a great answer. Also as well, Colorado, be asked to play board games, and not just one board game, multiple different board games with the different prospects. I thought that's also just as much fun.
I would love that.
If I went like playing like Settlers of Catan with like a bunch of like NHL scouts.
Brilliant.
Like, that's what I want to know is like, what board games was it? Was it like Ticket to Ride? Yeah. Because it's got to be like something where it's like someone who's like unfamiliar with it could like pick it up pretty quickly, which is Ticket to Ride you can pick up pretty quickly, and then it like takes time to like master the strategy. Not as someone who is very good at Ticket to Ride.
Okay.
But it's like, I don't know, you play because it's, and then I don't know, I just think that's so fun. That's so unique and like so different, and it's still like a great way to like get to know a prospect.
Yeah. And so I just love board games.
Also, yeah, no, like because it's a great way, like I don't know, if you like, everyone likes playing board games, and it's like an easy way for like to let your like to be a little bit more unguarded in a conversation, and it's a little bit of a less like formal interview sort of situation. It's very chill, like very relaxed, and I think that's good. Yeah, so that's our oh, and one more thing about the Combine. Toronto will have a post-Combine event this week. Where they've invited certain prospects that they have their eyes on, and will be like doing some additional testing, some additional conversations with them. Which before people are like, hey, is this it's allowed because it's after the Combine. So we're not going to get into an issue that Arizona had where they like lost some picks because they had some testing, because that was before the Combine. So once the Combine is after, you get a little bit more flexibility on what you can do in terms of interacting with prospects. Also, I just want to say congratulations to Team Canada forward Sarah Fillier, who went first overall in the PWHL draft to New York.
So I was like mid-drink then. No way!
Yeah. She was projected to go first. Yeah, because she was like the projected first overall. So I wonder who Ottawa picks. That's who I care about.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, good for her.
But that's cool.
It is.
Yeah. Ottawa picks second, so Toronto is picking last. How is this ordered? How did they decide this? Oh, was it based on regular season?
Yeah.
It
No,
was.
yeah.
I didn't understand it, and people were like, "Oh no, it makes sense." And I was like, because it was like based on like your record, like once you've been. I was like, this is so confusing. It's so confusing to understand because it was like once you were like mathematically eliminated, then it was like who had the best record once they were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, and I just, man, I think we tried to explain it on the podcast, and I just got confused.
Yeah.
But while we're on the topic of PWHL, there's been a kind of a crazy story that's kind of laid out in the past week with Minnesota, who are the reigning champions of PWHL, who like a week or two after they won the championship, like they won first ever Walter Cup, they fired their GM Natalie Darwitz, which is kind of crazy, and like everything that's come out about it has just made the situation crazier and crazier.
Yeah. It's like
There's
nothing. It just gets more complicated and like.
Every time there's something new that comes out about this situation, I have about 7 more questions to ask that did not get answered. Like, okay, maybe an article answers like one of my questions, but then like it leads to like 7 more that I have that of like, I'm just like, what? Why? For like, and it's so interesting. I think maybe some of this is in part, like, I understand the importance of having teams that are bankrolled by a league, especially when you're first starting out, because it very much guarantees having like money there to bankroll a season. Like, it's really important to have that financial support, and having the teams all owned by the league allows that. I really do hope we can move away from this format in the future, because there's some problems with it, because there's a huge gap in the leadership ladder. And we've seen in this situation, there's a huge gap in the leadership ladder in this here. But yeah, so the rumors surrounding this team have been crazy. There's been rumors because there hasn't been a clear reason as to why you would fire your GM of your championship winning team days before the draft and weeks before free agency starts.
Yeah, it's
right. Like, leaving very few people left at the table to make decisions based on the organizational structure of the all the PWHL teams, because they're all similar. Like, maybe some things are slightly different, titles are different, whatever, but it's like, there's like a director of business operations, there's a director of team services, and there's a director of fan experience and partner activation, and then it's just coaching. So it's like, in terms, and then there's like a director of game operations, but in terms of like decisions and required to like actual on ice product in terms of the players, it went GM, coach, and then coach, and then like head coach, and then like coaching staff. Those were the only, there's not like, especially with like PWHL Minnesota, there's not like a scouting staff or anything. Like, there's a video coordinator and a manager of sports performance, but like, I don't know what that entails.
No, it's an interesting structure. Of like,
it's just very weird. And yeah, so there's this article put together by Ian Kennedy that kind of breaks, it's kind of like a notebook of everything that's been going on. Last week, broke the story, removed from her position and would not be returning to the team. So it's like, didn't fire, she didn't step down. She was like, it was communicated as removed, right? And that raised a lot of eyebrows initially, because it wasn't like she was like, actually, I'm stepping away for whatever reason, right? Like, it was not framed it was her choice. It was like she got fired. According to another report from The Athletic, Darwitz was given 3 options at the time, which included taking a role in the PWHL Hockey Operations Department, issuing a joint statement where she would announce she had achieved everything she wanted in the first year of the franchise and was moving on to a new challenge, or to attend the PWHL draft, appearing as a member of PWHL Minnesota's staff, as her contract officially ran out on June 30th, but no authority to make picks. So then who's making the picks? Is it the head coach? Who's sitting at that table?
Yeah. Like who
this is where like I would like to be we probably should have like the draft out and should be looking and seeing like who's at that table making those decisions, because I don't know. Since then, things have continued back and forth where sources from within the team continue to speak on the basis of anonymity or to provide information on background alone. The league issued their first statement, and PWHL Senior Vice President of Hockey Operations Jana Hefford, in conjunction with Mandy Gutman, the PWHL Vice President of Communications and External Affairs, began addressing media to provide the league's stance. The 2 stories, I'm reading directly from this article, so the 2 stories have differed significantly from the beginning. Darwitz herself has been unable to provide details on the situation, and members of PWHL Minnesota, including coach Ken Klee and captain Kendall Coyne-Schofield, who have alleged involvement in the decisions coming out of Minnesota, have been unable or unwilling to provide comment to date. Michael Russo puts the PWHL on blast. Michael Russo of The Athletic was the first to break the story. He also is the Athletic beat reporter for the Minnesota Wild. Was relieved our duties, and some of the reasons went behind it. He went on Sunday sermons with Dan Buriano this week and put the league on blast for their handling of the situation. He stated that that the story itself was delayed in coming out because the league is beyond incompetent. It was a really remarkable, eye-opening experience, and we've heard all sorts of series about how poorly this league has been run all year. And to their credit, they made their first year work, but dealing with them behind the scenes, the first 2 days of the story was hilarious, he said on the radio show. He referred to the story itself as dysfunction and backstabbing of Natalie Darwitz, and clarified that it was a league decision to bring Klee in at the beginning of the season, and that the decision did not go to the general manager, who would typically be in charge of coaching decisions in a league not under single entity operation. And then after Klee's arrival, there was a riff between the coach and the GM. It was a very power struggle that GM Natalie Darwitz clashed with Ken Klee, and who had the support of several of the team's veterans, including captain Kendall Coyne-Schofield, who throughout like the postseason, especially like after Minnesota won, was heralded as being a huge reason why these players agreed to join this league, like why it had a lot of player support from the get-go. She kind of like was heralded as like the leader, the face of the players, right? Russo called it a situation rife for conflict, as Klee applied for Darwitz's job and did not get it, and also applied for the head coaching job in Minnesota and did not get that position either. According to Russo, the league placed Klee into the job, removing the choice from Darwitz when head coach Darwitz had hired initially Charlie Berggraf, lost his job with the team days before the season. He wanted both jobs. So apparently Ken Klee wanted to have both be the GM and the head coach, which like, you can't do that. No. That does not work in this situation, and it makes your league look amateur. Having GM and a head coach be the same position is like a AA juniors team sort of organization hierarchy, where like your GM and your head coach is the same person, is something you would see in like AAA.
Yeah, and it's like no one in a professional league should have that much power and involvement with a team, because it's, first of all, that just would not end well.
So it is Ken Klee making the decisions, it says here, now acting as head coach and general manager at the PWHL draft. That wish has come true.
Well,
Russo also spoke on the veteran impact of players in the building upon the rifts between Klee and Darwitz, aligning with what sources have told the Hockey News. Russo confirmed that it was a small group of veterans behind the scenes that supported Klee, including captain Kendall Coyne-Schofield. One is clearly Kendall wields a lot of power within the league. I think a lot of the things she tells Jana Hefford, who runs the league, is stuff that just turns into being Teflon, Russo said. Russo continued saying, it's just very clear that Kendall has a lot of power this year, both inside the league and with the team, inside the organization. There were people that told us she called lines on the bench. She just had a lot of power for a player on the team. I don't think it's without the realm of possibility that what we're hearing has a lot of truth to it. I think she definitely had her hands in this. They clearly had to pick one between Natalie and Ken, and they chose to keep Ken. One remark Russo also discussed was Kendall Coyne-Schofield's comments at PWHL Minnesota's celebration in XL, blah, 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 a venue Darwitz had helped secure through her relationship with the Minnesota Wild, where Russo pointed out that Coyne-Schofield said that the organization's success started at the top, but claimed the top was Ken Klee, making no mention of the actual top, Natalie Darwitz. That the situation, blah, 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 was not unique to professional sport. It's not take that route. Yeah, there was like discussions. Yeah, it's
just very messy in ways that it just didn't need to be.
Like it's the fact that, and this is where like, you know, my like, you can read that full article. I think we'll probably link it in the show notes where you can read the full thing before I read that thing out loud. We don't have time for that, but like the thing that really stood out to me in this whole situation is like I said, like it's important, yeah, like having a league that has like each team has guaranteed financial support despite based on performance. Like I think there definitely would have been financial issues for some teams this season, notably with lower attendance, so notably Boston and New York, who had notably lower attendance compared to other teams. Like Ottawa, I think Ottawa had like the most fan attendance for all of their games in the regular season. Like now, due in part of that is because they played in a bigger building than Toronto, and I think Toronto easily could have sold out all of their games had they been held at Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah.
Easily. So like that's, but like, so it's not me dissing on Toronto. I think Toronto had fantastic support, but I do think like it's like, yeah, okay, having that, but I do think this is where you run into issues of the fact that like there isn't the same separation between league, team ownership, and player. That hierarchy isn't defined enough where you can have your team captain essentially go to the VP of the league and get your GM fired for, and it's because it's not like, I'm not for like, okay, yes, like there should be that if something bad was happening, but Natalie Darwitz, like she did nothing wrong in her job. Like it's not like there was some huge, crazy, awful thing she did. She was doing her job and she did a great job this season, obviously. But it's like your team captain, like the influence that your team captain should have on your team should not surpass into going into making front office decisions.
No.
Right? Like John Tavares is not walking up into the front office at MLSE and going directly to fucking Brendan Shanahan and being like, you need to fire Kyle Dubas.
It's like, as a captain, your power begins and ends with the players.
Yeah.
It does not extend further than that because that's...
And like maybe you can provide suggestions to the coach to be like, hey, look, this is what I'm seeing.
But
and the coach will be like,
that, it's like it's coming from a, here's my perspective as a player, not here's what's going to happen and you're going to listen to me and this is how it's going to work. Like you do not, as a player, you do not get to go to people who are above you and just make the decisions. That's not how it works.
Like if we were to look at this where like the PWHL is not necessarily a league, but an ownership group, John Tavares is not going above anybody's heads and going directly to the board of directors of MLSE and going, hey, you guys need to fire our GM. You need to, like, that's not how the decision to fire Kyle Dubas was made. That was made from a Brendan Shanahan with probably some input with MLSE board of directors of being like, hey, this is like, because it's not even like he was fired, like just his contract wasn't re-signed. So it was like kind of phased as a firing because it was like before his contract had expired. He got let go. So we'll call it fired because even Kyle Dubas himself calls it, like, said, oh yeah, I got fired when talking about it. So, but it's like, it's not like that's what happened. No, it was Brendan Shanahan being like, this is the direction we're going to go. He went to MLSE board of directors being like, this is the direction we're going to go. And they were like, okay, well, you're the president of hockey operations. So like you have this authority to do that. And then he went and was like, sorry, Kyle, gonna have to get you to pack up your weird modern wacko office in Ford Performance Center.
It's because I don't want to sound like one of those people who's like, oh yeah, the hierarchy like is rigid and should be there, but like even as a captain,
it exists for a reason.
It exists for a reason. Like even as a captain, you need to know your place.
Oh yeah, like
and it's like that's not in like a you're beneath them. It's you need to know and understand what your role is as captain of the team, which is not to go above everyone else and then make decisions for the front office. Your leadership begins and ends with the other players on that team. It does not extend further than that.
Like, and here's what I will say too. Like, if Kendall Coyne wanted to have that authority where she could make these sort of decisions, she could be on the bench, you know, calling plays, or she can, I don't know, be sitting in the front office making like roster decisions, or even be sitting in the league office and be making league decisions about the entirety of the league. Like, it's so like implies that she very much wanted to do. She didn't have to play. She did not have to play.
No one's stopping you.
She very much, I think, of great, like, and like this, because this is where it seems so mean girl of how this situation is being described on like her actions specifically. And it's like, I'm sure the PWHL would have probably created a player relations position for her in their in the league office where she can utilize her connections to other players. Right?
Yeah.
Because she has huge amount of connections with players, and she could use that to then garner the same support and same decision to join this league as a player that she did from a player's perspective, but not go but then still have authority to make certain decisions.
Yeah. Like if you want
this is also
authority and that responsibility, you take that role. You do not take a different role and then expect to be able to do that anyway.
It's like, it's not to sound like a theater kid, but you know exactly where I'm going with this, eh? Yeah. You're not some understudy then trying to become the show's director.
No.
That's not how this works.
No, it's like,
and I think a lot of this that was able to come down was a lot of this comes down to the fact that like the ownership group of a team is the same people who are running the league. And that's where the lines get blurred, because the ownership group that if you so definitely like there's some Natalie Darwitz did some nasty whatever thing that like players were made to feel uncomfortable because of something she said or something she did, instead of then going to the league, like, because you have to go to whoever's above her, which in this case, because she's the GM and she's at the top, you have to go to the team ownership. Well, you can't go to the team owner. Like at that point, then, okay, I'm not going to the team ownership, because you're also going to the league at the same time. And then therefore, instead of having a discussion as like team to team ownership, you're having a discussion to team to league. And there's a huge disparity in that conversation. Because then it's like essentially going to from John Tavares is having a conversation with Gary Bettman about getting Kyle Dubas fired.
Which it's like when you
Which is
put it like that, it's unrealistic and it's so stupid.
It's so stupid. And you can be like, well, the league's just not at that scale of the NHL. I'm like, yeah, but the positions and the space between hierarchy is all still the same, no matter the size.
It's like you can have a league like the PWHL that's not as big, and you can have the teams being owned by the league, but like you can still create the boundaries that need to be put in place for this. And it's just I think this is if anyone's going to learn anything from this, it's the fact that everyone within a team, no matter whether you're a player or like on the front office, your job has its own role. It has its boundaries, it has its limits, and you need to learn them, and you need to learn how your role interacts with others. And you need to understand that you cannot cross these boundaries just because you feel like it, because that's inappropriate. It's wildly inappropriate for within the team and within the league as a whole. Like you have to understand that you are an individual in a massive web of connections. This is not you do not get to go above everyone else and make these decisions because what you do affects everyone else. And it's like so players on PWHL Minnesota, it's gonna cause like issues within the team and between the players.
Like, oh yeah,
huge, massively.
Like if
Like,
I'm
think about this before you do something as drastic and as like as selfish as what has been done.
Also, because you have to think about it as well. Like there apparently, there's this group of veteran players. Imagine you're some kid. It's like you're just out of college, like playing college hockey, right? You get drafted in, like you're not fully. You maybe have played on the international like level, or you're international. Like you're not a North American player. You're coming in from Europe or you're coming in from somewhere else, right? And you're in this situation where there's almost we've created like an old like a old boys club.
Yeah. Massively.
But within a women's hockey league. That's what's happened here. Is within like there's an environment that got built that was able to get built because of the dynamics that you allowed to take place as a league, because of decisions that you allowed to get made, because your player and your coach, because it wasn't even like because Ken Klee was brought in and the last minute because the first coach that Minnesota hired that was Natalie Darwitz's choice got fired a couple days before the season started. Rumored because of something Kendall Coyne-Schofield said. Like this dynamic cannot be allowed to take place in a professional hockey league. It's an old boys club that you've created in a women's league. So like imagine if you're like not one of those veteran players, you're one of those younger players who it's like this is your first taste at pro hockey. This is your first taste of hockey at a pro level, at any level. Like it's your first year out of university, right? And like this is your taste at like pro hockey. Like you didn't play in the other leagues that have existed before this. And right, because like PWHL is not the first professional women's hockey league. It's not, even though it keeps getting marketed as, and there's where a lot of the mistakes then lie, because it allows a lot of these misconceptions to take place. And like here you are then, and you feel like you can't like say something, whatever, because, and I'm not saying this is what's happened, but like it's a male coach in a women's team. So and I'm not saying this is what happened, but like say there's something you wanted to bring up, a concern with the coaching staff. Your step as a player would be, okay, I bring it up with my captain, because that's how that works, right?
Yeah.
You bring it up with your captain.
Mm.
You imagine feeling afraid that you cannot bring it up with your captain because your captain is in cahoots with the coach to perform a coup on the GM.
Yeah,
Think of
because
the
it's
environment that creates in a team.
like, and as well, a big issue I have with all this is like the PWHL has marketed itself as like this is a very big progressive, like we're making giant steps. Like,
Go
and
women.
it's like if you want to make these giant steps, you cannot create an environment for young players who are coming into the league, who are the future of the league. You cannot create an environment that isolates them in a
Yeah.
way that they feel like they cannot voice their opinions and bring up issues with their captain because they know that their captain has already had the power and like being able to get the GM fired. It's like you would not want to go to your captain because you'd be like, well, if she could get the GM fired, like what could happen to me if I like have an issue that she disagrees with? And it's like it's off-putting to like to younger players who are like, yeah, I'm gonna come into this league and I want to play. But it's like if an environment and an atmosphere within the team is being created where there's such a big like gap and divide between like the newer younger players and like the older veteran players, those older players are there to like to look after these younger players and to like mentor them. So if you're basically making these younger players feel like they cannot have these role models in the older players on their teams, that's a really shit experience for these younger players who are like, I'm not even if this is like the environment that's being created and it's a negative one, they're just gonna go play somewhere else. They're gonna find somewhere else to play, which is then gonna like if this happens on a larger scale within the league, it's gonna be like it's gonna have such a negative impact on the league as a whole, which is not what we want. Like we want this league to do well and to like develop and advance and like just get bigger. You're not gonna get that sort of evolution if you have incidents within teams like this that just puts everyone off. Because then it's not only is this like not sitting right with like the players, it's not sitting right with fans. I know because I've seen so many PWHL Minnesota fans talking like on Twitter being like, yeah, this is weird and this is not what we want to see. And it's like it's leaving a really bad taste in everyone's mouths. And no, it's a really shitty situation that should not have happened in the first place for anyone. And I just think I just want more clarification on like exactly how not even like exactly what happened, but how it was allowed to happen.
Because this also has an impact on like player like signing free agents and like player negotiations of returning
Massively.
players before free agency starts. This is again from another article from Ian Kennedy. I think it's from the same one I was just reading. It's just further down. That's how long this article is, and that's why I stopped reading where I did. But like, if you want to get more details on this, there's like rumors of like separate workouts being done by this veteran group of players that's like invited to like Kendall Coyne Schofield's like secret little club of buddies, where I'm like, you're making an old boys club and a women's hockey team.
Yeah.
That's what's going on here.
I mean, like,
I've seen this, like, why are we here doing this? But this quote here, multiple players and other sources confirm that Darwitz had open discussions and contract negotiations with players. For some, those discussions were preliminary, while others had reached financial terms, closing in on signing extensions. Since news broke last week, none of those players have been contacted by PWHL Minnesota or the league, leaving players to believe the agreements that they were working on no longer exist, and that they may not be welcomed back to the team despite the messaging they received during exit meetings and in initial contract negotiations. I'm like upset because you know what? Like at the end of the day, this reminds me of when I was like in like to be in to view into this situation. It reminds me of when I was in elementary school getting bullied. Like
it's very much like that vibe.
Right? Am I crazy in saying that? Like it reminds me of like elementary, like stupid little like elementary school like playground like shenanigans, or like,
do you know what?
I don't know, like
exactly
it's like
it feels like
High School Mean Girls. It
feels like in primary school when you're playing a game with like all your friends. When you're like playing a game with all your friends and someone comes up and is like, oh, like, can I play too? And you're like, it's not my game. You have to ask like whoever's game. You have to ask her, and it's like, it's very.
And all this power goes to the most popular girl in the group, like the center. Oh my god, no. Foursquare, sorry, you can't play. We don't like having more than 5 players because then we don't like having people wait. I'm like, whatever. I'll go play. Exactly there's a reason I was playing soccer with the boys when in grade 5 at recess, because it was like they were like, oh, you want to play soccer with us? Okay, you're on that team.
Yeah, it's no. I think I have such a huge issue with this because it's like, how are your veteran players on a team who are supposed to like be there to provide like support and guidance for your younger players? How are they all gonna, like, not all, but how is like what seems like a majority of your veteran players all just gonna basically separate workouts, like move off and like create their own little bubble? Because it's like, that's not your job on the team, and like in the nicest way possible, you can be replaced.
And I think, and like maybe, and like the messages sent out, and maybe this is because like we're both fans of a team that at least recently has had a pretty good, from a outside perspective, from what we've been able to see, has a pretty good locker room environment.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I'm not going to say that's been the history of this team, because
it's just not.
We're not that far removed from Mike Babcock. I'll say it out loud, but like recently, in the past few years, it seems like it's been a pretty good locker room environment, at least from like what we've heard, right? Like there hasn't been anything where it's been like a crazy thing where it's like, this is a toxic environment. So like, right? But like, and in a like the NHL, and now I know it's comparing these two leagues is apples to oranges, but they're both fruit at the end of the day. The NHL is already a league that struggles with transparency.
Yeah.
And they're getting better at it. But they struggle with transparency. The PWHL is like putting the NHL struggle with transparency on steroids. We don't know salary numbers. There's only like a range of like, this is what a player could be making. And it's like the difference between like how much my first year of university cost versus like the salary of like a top end executive. Like,
yeah, it's like you can give the
range is like what, like $30,000 to what, $120,000, right?
It's
that, where players fall in that range means like that range means absolutely nothing to me as a fan.
No.
I'm sorry. I would like to know how, like, because it's hard to judge a player's value.
Mm.
Because we even struggled, we couldn't get time on ice for the first 6 games of the season or whatever.
No.
So then you couldn't even, you only had counting stats. You didn't have you weren't able to do any advanced stats. So the only way you could judge a player's value on a team besides watching every single game, which unfortunately, I'm sorry, not everyone has time to do that.
No.
Is by looking at counting stats, which for some positions, like defense, don't mean a whole lot. It doesn't give a full picture to a player's ability. And it's hard to judge a player's value without having a value to judge it against. In the NHL, because in the NHL, you can be like, okay, well, Austin Matthews is going to get paid $13 million. How does every other player in his echelon compare to him? Right? And then players are able to go, well, Austin Matthews is getting paid $13 million. For example, Connor McDavid can go, well, Austin Matthews is getting paid $13 million. Here's what I've done in comparison to Austin Matthews in terms of my awards that I've won, the amount of times I've been an all-star, my straight up like goal scoring abilities, all these things, my playoff performances. So this is how much I think I should be getting paid using Austin Matthews as a comparison. And like now before people are like, well, so obviously this is the player. It's not like it's the player's agents. When I say when I mean like a player, I mean their camp. Yeah. It's not the player directly. It's not.
We've been there. We've opened that ton of worms.
We've had this discussion before on that. But it's like, so then it's hard for players who don't know how comparable players to them who like maybe they don't know because they've never played on the same team as them, they don't have that connection, they play on a different team, they've from a different country, so they've never played on a national program together, they never played each other in college, so they don't have that connection of like, hey, this is a player who's similar to me based on stats, based on what I've seen on the ice. I want to know how much they are getting paid on their contract so that I'm able to then go ask for the similar amount on my contract to make sure I'm getting paid fairly. Because not disclosing player salaries is a huge reason as to why employers are able to take advantage of employees. Yeah. It's like how to take advantage of your employees one-on-one. Don't disclose salaries. It's in the handbook on how to do that. And I think it's just like, that's the problem with the lack of transparency. Like, we don't know how long contracts are. We don't know like all these different things. And it's very frustrating as both a fan and I'm sure as a player as well to not have this transparency. And I think this situation is a prime example on why that transparency is so very important.
Yeah.
Why this league has raised so many questions for me. I think personally, I'm sure you probably also have questions about how this league works and just this league in general. Like, yeah, sorry, my rant over. Because I've been saying since day one, since this league was announced, that there's been a mismanagement from a communications perspective, from a PR perspective. And then those mismanagements from that perspective get me all riled up and really, really passionate to talk about as someone who is going to school for this.
Yeah. And
but
it's just frustrating to like watch all of this go down and know that it could have been handled so much better had certain people being put in their place. But I think at the end of the day, that is something that needs to happen. Like, it has to get to a point where you just have to sit everyone down and just be like, look, appreciate your input, but also this is not your job. And you need to understand that. And you need to accept it. You don't have to be happy about it, but you have to acknowledge it, and you have to realize that as the captain of a team, you do not get to make these kinds of decisions at all, because that's not your job and it's not your responsibility. And it just feels so icky. And like, yeah. It's annoying, and I feel like we could very easily talk about this for about another 3 hours.
Oh, we could do an entire episode on this situation for sure. And I think, definitely for sure we'll have, this is something that'll come back up. I think we want to get Miranda back on the podcast. I think we could do an entire episode on this with Miranda.
That would be incredible. I'm so down for that.
Are you going to send a message to Miranda after we're done here saying that?
Well, speaking of that, they've just liked one of my tweets as we were talking about. Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, we've had pink trades.
Ooh.
This is what we're missing by recording this. New York and Boston's been trading picks. Yeah.
Yes.
This is what we missed last year at the draft, is them trading picks at the table. Also, as well, before we end this episode here, I do just want to say congratulations to Dallas Stars GM Jim Nill for his win, he won the Jim Gregory General Manager of the Year award. So congratulations to him.
Woo.
I love Jim Nill. I'm sorry. He just looks like a very pleasant old man.
Yeah.
With the mustache and the
look about him. He's got a look about him. He's like,
yeah, I don't know. He just looks like very pleasant. And like, you know what? He's good at his job, obviously, because he won this award. But like, he is just in general good at his job. So, yeah, congratulations to Jim Nill. Well deserved.
Yeah.
Well deserved. He did put together a very excellent team this year. So. And like, anyway, they're Dallas Stars. What an organization. But yeah, I think that's all we have to talk about for today.
Yeah.
I believe that's it. I guess we can finish this episode here. It's a little bit of a longer one, but we did have a game to talk about, and we did have some very interesting discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, no, I would be very interested to hear other people's thoughts on the whole situation with PWHL Minnesota. Like, I think it's such an interesting situation, because it's not something we've seen in the NHL, because that power just like isn't given to players, and that's not how decisions get made in the NHL. So it's not something like we've seen. And so I would love to hear people's perspective and opinions on it. So I think maybe I think like Spotify has like a place where you can ask questions, and like you guys could like say, like submit things. So maybe I'll change that question for the first time since starting the show, because it gives you like an automatic question to like. Yeah, but it gives you like a question that you can just like, it's like a base question that like you can put in every, but I think I'll finally change what that question is so people can give us their thoughts on specifically this situation. If not, also like reply to the tweet for this episode, or like email us, DM us, DM the show. Like I just would love to know people's opinions on this, on the situation with PWHL Minnesota, because I think it's a very interesting one.
Yeah, I just want to know what everyone thinks. Like,
Me too.
It's such an interesting like situation with like a lot of different perspectives. And it's like, I just want to see what other people think.
Me too. So and like, yeah, we could like scroll through Twitter, but like
that's not as fun.
That's annoying. That's not as fun as getting people, as like people sending us messages. So
yeah, please send us messages.
Send us messages. We love it when people send us messages about like how much they love the show, or like whatever. We have an email inbox that has basically only been getting like promo emails from like Linktree since we've started this show. So like, send us an email.
Yeah.
People don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah, send us a little email. We love a
us
good
an
little
email.
email.
We love an email. But with that being said, yes, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back on Thursday to talk about a hockey game and to talk about, I guess we get all PWHL draft, PWHL awards are tomorrow. So we can talk about all that and more news that may come out in the next few days. Who knows? Who knows what we'll have to talk about? Who knows? Maybe some contracts will get signed.
Maybe.
Because maybe some trades. We're nearing up on the draft. We'll see how it all works out. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, we'll be back on Thursday with another episode. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow the show on Twitter at From the Fourth Line. That's fourth with the number 4TH. You can follow Marcie on Twitter at 60Leafs. You can follow myself at PairB1. And we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.